25 years after the axe killing of a 19-year-old woman in Marysville, detectives say they have arrested the man responsible.
Hey guys, my name's Brooke and I enjoy reading about strange occurrences, true crime, conspiracy theories, etc. and sharing my findings with like-minded and curious individuals. If you feel that you fit that description, please consider hitting the subscribe button down below. Special shout out to this comment for suggesting that I cover today's case, and a friendly reminder that if you have any recommendations for topics that you'd like to see me cover in future videos, go ahead and leave those down below in the comments and I will get to them as soon as I can. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into today's case. In 1998, 19-year-old Jennifer Brinkman was living in Marysville, Washington with her father Michael Brinkman and his girlfriend. Marysville is considered a suburb of nearby Seattle, and in the late 90s, the population of Marysville was only about 28,000, so not too big and not too small. The Brinkmans had recently moved into a quiet neighborhood on Grove Street where they were within a walking distance of a grocery store, a convenience store, a library, and basically anything that they could ever need. Since the Brinkmans had just recently moved to Marysville within the last couple months, Jennifer hadn't really had the opportunity to make a whole lot of good friends. Nevertheless, Jennifer was an extremely outgoing and friendly girl, and when she was out and about in the town, going to local businesses or the library, she didn't hesitate to stop people along the way and converse with them, get to know them, and just introduce herself. Jennifer was mentally handicapped, and although she was physically 19 years old, her mental capacity was closer to that of a 13 or 14-year-old at the time. Not only was Jennifer an extrovert ready to meet all sorts of new people in her new town, but she was also very extroverted online as well. Like many teens in the late 90s, Jennifer was really into chatting with people online, and she did so either on the telephone or she would go to the local library and get on chat rooms, since at the time the Brinkmans didn't have a computer in their household. One specific chat line that Jennifer enjoyed frequenting would connect callers to other anonymous individuals where they could start having any sort of type of conversation that they wanted to. Sort of like an old school Omegle, but without the overwhelming bombardment of unsolicited male genitalia. But, you know, I'm sure if there was video capacity at this time, it would still be a problem because there's a bunch of weirdos out there. I don't know what you people are doing, but anyways, I'm getting off track. Let's get back to the story. According to journal entries that Jennifer had written and people who knew her well in real life, she had hoped to use these online methods of chatting with strangers in order to find some sort of romantic partner. On March 13th, 1998, Michael Brinkman would invite his daughter Jennifer to join him and his girlfriend to go to vacation in Anaheim, California and visit Disneyland. To his surprise, Jennifer actually declined this invitation and said that she would rather stay home that week. Michael was hesitant to leave Jennifer alone because due to her developmental delays, he had never really left her home alone before, and this would be the longest time by far that she would ever not have anyone watching over her. But knowing that he would have to grant his daughter some sort of independence eventually, he saw this as a good opportunity to let her demonstrate her maturity, and so he agreed to let her stay home for the week. In online forums discussing this case, I found a lot of people who were really questioning Michael's decision to let Jennifer stay home alone, but in my opinion, whether she was mentally 19 or 13 or 14, she was still around those teenage years where she was probably wanting some sort of independence that we all do when we're that age. And it was also the 90s, and not much had changed from the previous decades when parents were just a lot more trusting of their community and they didn't have as tight of a grip on their children as parents do today. Also, for all we know, there could have been some sort of argument about this situation. There's no evidence that Michael just said, okay, go ahead and stay home, you're fine, I have no worries about you. At the end of the day, Michael knew and understood his daughter way better than any internet stranger possibly could, and he ended up making the decision that he felt was appropriate at the time. Now, it might have been a good idea for some sort of adult to check up on Jennifer once in a while or just have her contact information, but of course hindsight is 20/20, and I do feel for Michael. So upon agreeing to let Jennifer stay home for the week by herself, Michael went to the grocery store and bought some food and cigarettes to last her the week, and before you know it, he and his girlfriend were packing their bags and they were heading off to California to enjoy their Disneyland vacation. Now during this week, week that Jennifer was left to her own devices in this home. It's not very clear exactly what she was doing, but one thing that's for sure is that she was seen walking to a nearby 7-Eleven convenience store on March 16th. A few days later, on March 21st, 8 days after leaving for their California vacation, Michael and his girlfriend would return to their home in Marysville. Of course, after being away from her for so long, Michael immediately goes to Jennifer's room to let her know that they're home from their vacation, tell her how everything went, and especially just to check up on her and make sure that she's okay. But as soon as Michael opened the door, he would be greeted by a horrific scene. His daughter was lying dead on her bedroom floor, covered in blood and scattered with axe wounds to her neck. Obviously, being in complete shock and horror, Michael ran outside of his house into the street, attempting to flag down a nearby or passing police officer, which he ended up doing. Upon entering the home to investigate, police took note that there was no sign of forced entry, meaning that the likelihood of Jennifer knowing this person and letting them into her house willingly was increased. When entering her bedroom, police immediately took notice that there was definitely signs of a struggle, meaning that Jennifer had fought back against her attacker. The murder weapon was also found in Jennifer's bedroom, and it was an axe with a wooden handle that was absolutely covered in Jennifer's blood. This axe actually came from the Brinkman household, and Michael was pretty certain that it was in the garage when he had left for his vacation, so this indicated that the person didn't just bring a weapon into the house, and maybe this wasn't even a premeditated attack. It was unclear exactly what day Jennifer's murder had taken place, but after analyzing the evidence, police were pretty sure that when Michael and his girlfriend had arrived home on the 21st, Jennifer had been dead for at least a couple days. Police collected several samples from the crime scene, including Jennifer's fingernail clippings, because according to the crime scene and how it appeared that she had fought back, they suspected that the perpetrator's DNA would be under her fingernails if she had scratched him. They also took DNA from the handle of the axe, but after having it sent off to be analyzed, the only thing that the police discovered was that this DNA belonged to an unidentified male. At this point, police either believed that this DNA did belong to the murderer, or maybe it was just somebody who was present at the crime scene, but either way, they knew that they needed to find this person as soon as possible in order to interrogate them and get crucial information about what had happened to Jennifer. The only problem was that in 1998, technology wasn't nearly as advanced as it is now, and police were only able to analyze DNA against the criminal database, meaning that if a person hadn't committed crime before and had their DNA sampled and entered into the criminal database, police had nothing to match it up against. So even though police had done their due diligence in collecting all of this DNA and sending it off to be analyzed, technology just kind of had them run into a dead end, and there was nothing much more they could do since it didn't match up with anybody in the criminal database at the time. Since solid evidence wasn't really available at this point, police got desperate and started investigating anybody they could possibly think of who could be a suspect. But throughout all of these interrogations, police just couldn't find any probable cause for why any of these people would do such a thing to Jennifer. Police suspected and hoped that whoever had done this crime had went and bragged about it or talked about it with another person, and hopefully one day this person would come forward and reveal the perpetrator to police. In an interview with Jennifer's mother, she actually revealed that Jennifer had a movie date planned with a man that she had met online the week that her father had went to Disneyland. This kind of makes me think back to when Jennifer declined the offer to go to Disneyland with her father, because maybe she already had this date planned well in advance and she saw this opportunity to have her freedom and she took it. Her dad wasn't going to be home. She finally found somebody who could potentially be a romantic interest, and she wanted to spend a little time with them as an adult and as a free individual. Continuing with their investigation, police actually found a letter in Jennifer's room which was dated March 10th, only 2 weeks before she was murdered. The return address on this letter belonged to 28-year-old Jeffrey Paul Primo, who lived in Bellevue, Washington. The letter read, "Dear Jen, I hope your week has gone good. Are you and your parents getting along better? Please try and get along with your mother so we can at least see each other on a regular basis. I miss you so much. I have your address. I should just drive over and spend the day with you. How does that sound? And at the end of the letter, Jeffrey left his phone number. So by the sounds of it, Jennifer and this man have probably met in person before. Obviously, police see this letter as a pretty big indicator that this man Jeffrey likely has something to do with Jennifer's death, and after all, they do have his address on this letter, so they don't hesitate to head over to his house and pay him a visit. When police arrive at Jeffrey's house and begin questioning him about this letter, Jeffrey immediately denies knowing who Jennifer is, denies writing this letter, and denies having even ever been to Marysville at all. Awfully strange that a letter saying you're gonna visit this girl who then was murdered 2 weeks later, and the letter also contains your name, address, and phone number, leads back to you, but you claim not to have anything to do with it? And if that weren't enough, police matched Jeffrey's phone number, the one on the bottom of the letter, with an inbound call that was received from Jennifer's mother's voicemail on her home phone. Coincidence? I think not. So even though Jeffrey denied having anything to do with Jennifer and denied even knowing her, they knew that something was definitely up with this guy. So they take DNA from this letter, but once again they run into the whole technology problem where there's really nothing they could do because Jeffrey had never committed a crime before, so they're pretty much SOL. As time continued to pass with no answers for what happened to Jennifer, her case slowly begins to grow cold. In March 2011, 13 years after the death of Jennifer Brinkman, her father Michael would unfortunately pass away without ever receiving any sort of answers or justice about who stole his daughter's life. Fast forward to the year 2022, and 24 years later, there's still no answers about what happened to Jennifer Brinkman. That was until November 28th, when police would arrest Jeffrey Paul Primo, who by this time is 52 years old. As we are all very well aware, technology continues to progress at an expeditious rate, and forensic technology is no exception to this. If you're a regular consumer of true crime, you're probably familiar with cases like Joseph D'Angelo, aka the Golden State Killer, or Henry Greenwell, the Days Inn murderer. Both of these high-profile cases stood cold for decades until they were resolved by the use of genetic genealogy, in which their family members use websites such as 23andMe or Ancestry.com to discover more about their family tree. Police can then match up DNA samples from crime scenes with these vast and ever-expanding public databases in order to track familial lineage and possibly find members that are related to unidentified perpetrators and solve these cold case crimes that just drag on and on for years unsolved. So now, even those without criminal records could be discovered by police when one of their family members just simply agrees to participate in one of these genealogy websites. Just a quick side note, if any of my family members out there are watching this right now, just know that our DNA is in those databases, so if you're thinking about committing a crime, don't even think about it, because you're not getting away with it. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but you're getting caught. You're welcome. So as you can guess, after all this time, police still want to know what happened to Jennifer Brinkman. The police department in Marysville was not comfortable knowing that somebody had just come into their small community and just killed somebody, and they were out there walking around getting away with it. So police opted to send these old DNA samples that they had collected at the crime scene to Parabon Nanolabs, which is located in Virginia. Parabon Nanolabs was able to create a family tree based on this evidence that was found in Jennifer's room, and what do you know? One person happened to be included in this family tree that had been on police suspect radar all along, our old pal Jeff. So on November 16th, 2022, police returned to Jeff's house where they had visited him several years ago, but turns out Jeff does not live there anymore. They keep investigating, contacting phone numbers that may possibly be associated with Jeffrey and asking around town, but they're really having a hard time tracking him down. It would appear that Jeffrey was trying to avoid police, but unfortunately for him, he would not get away with this because police ended up finding him in Redmond, Washington. So they start questioning Jeff again, and of course he denies knowing Jennifer. At first. As police continue to question Jeffrey, he lets it slip that he might have actually known Jennifer, but he can't quite remember because he used to talk to so many women on there he couldn't keep them all straight. But after police try to jog Jeff's memory and show him a picture of Jennifer, he still denies ever seeing her in person. face to face. He denies ever seeing a picture of her, and he denies having anything to do with her death. Buddy, the facts are stacking up against you. The letter, the DNA. Either somebody seriously has it out for you and is setting you up, or you're just a horrible, horrible liar. Spoiler alert, it's the latter. So, police obtain a search warrant for Jeff's DNA, but he ends up giving it to them voluntarily anyways, and police would send this DNA to the Washington State Forensic Lab to be officially analyzed. Unsurprisingly, Jeff's DNA once again matched up with the DNA found at the crime scene, and he was arrested. When trying to question Jeffrey once again about what happened back in March of 1998, he evoked his constitutional rights and he said, "Get me a lawyer because I am not talking to you." On November 28th, 2022, Jeffrey Paul Primo would be booked into the Snohomish County Jail on a $250,000 bond for first-degree murder. Even though Jeffrey refused to talk to police, and he definitely didn't give them a motive for why he did this because he was denying ever doing it in the first place, the police were really happy that after over 2 decades, they finally had an answer to what had happened to Jennifer, and they felt a lot more comfortable knowing that a potential murderer wasn't just out walking around wandering the streets. Unfortunately, Michael Brinkman would never get to experience this sense of relief and justice due to his passing in 2011, but police were able to notify Jennifer Brinkman's mother, who was very emotional, but she was most likely just overcome by the sense of having answers after all of these years of not knowing what happened to her daughter. Unfortunately, it appears that Jeffrey made bail the same day that he was arrested, so as far as I know, he's currently just out there wandering around yet again until his next court date. Police have said there's no indication that he's a threat because they don't have any evidence that he's ever been violent or hurt anybody else, but the fact that he potentially even did this to Jennifer is concerning enough in itself. He's just out there walking around, so if you're in the Seattle, Washington area, maybe keep an eye out. I don't know. It just also brings up the possibility that he could potentially flee, or he could, in order to escape the consequences of his actions, but, I don't know. We'll see, I guess. That is all the information that is publicly available on this case at the time, but as there are any updates in the future with his future trial dates and the like, I will keep you all updated down below in the comments, where I will pin a comment. If you made it to the end of the video, I just want to thank you so much for sticking around and hearing the entirety of Jennifer's case. There's still a lot of details and questions that haven't been answered in regards to this case, but it feels really good to know that after 24 years, there was finally some sort of answer to what happened to this girl. I'm sure her mother and just her extended family members felt so much relief, but I'm sure it brought up a lot of pain for them. My heart goes out to them. I'm thinking of you guys. Anyways, once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.